I know what you're thinking. What in the gosh darn is Bits and Bombs? Bits and Bombs is a podcast deep diving into what it takes to do stand-up from a different comedian every episode. Follow new open micer Peter Doms in his journey to be an okay comic.
I love ghosts. I saw this ad for this ghost tour in Launceston, and the woman running the tour, she just like, don't come. The ghosts are too scary. And I don't know if this woman like doesn't understand advertising, or if she's used reverse psychology on me, because now like I really want to go. Like, how can ghosts be too scary? Like, worst case scenario, right? The ghost's so scary, someone on the tour dies of fright. Like, that's actually going to be a lot of publicity for your ghost tour. And also, an additional ghost.
Angus Gordon.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me in your living room.
Thanks for coming to my living room.
I don't know if I'm doxing. It's in the living room.
Oh, no.
This isn't a set. He hasn't dressed the set to look like a living room. It is a living room. It's authentic.
Queenslander set.
Yeah. That's right. We actually, you filmed this just south of the border, but you make it look like a Queenslander set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you're so close to the heart of Queensland, Suncorp Stadium.
Close.
Very far. I don't know. I don't know if you want people to know what area you're in. Yeah. On the way here, I walked through they've got like a little plaques for all of the State of Origin players, I guess, like the Walk of Fame. Yeah.
So close. I mean, so far away from it.
Yes, I walked a long way to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I started, I was near that, but now I'm very far away.
So Angus, when did you start stand up?
And the address is yeah, let's stop hitting around the bush. His neighbors are their names. I started I think mid 2012. I'm pretty sure it was mid 2012. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. And what was your first gig?
It was at that's awful. I'm really bad at remembering names of places, but you know that bar that's like near the Mater Hospital on the corner of like, is it Vulture Street and Logan Road?
No, I don't know Brisbane too well.
Okay, yeah. I can't remember what it's called, like Brew House or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Ting and Becky used to run it. I did my first gig there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. Wait, was that Becky Lucas?
Yeah, Becky Lucas
cool.
and Ting Lim. Yep, sorry.
Yeah, sweet.
And it went not good.
Not good?
Not good. Yeah, I just like froze. I thought I was going to be so funny. And I got up there and I was like, I like physically felt like I couldn't speak. It was probably only for like a couple of seconds, but for me it felt like an eternity of like just like actually just couldn't get a word out.
Did you record that first set?
No.
Because sometimes I've found that like I'll be like, oh, I froze up for ages, and then you look back, it's like a second.
Yeah,
and
it probably.
It's like, yeah.
Oh, to me, it felt like forever. It felt like an eternity. Like I was trying, like, and I just couldn't get a word out. And then I got to think some like pity laughs from like friends that came. I heard you when you were talking about to Goxie on this podcast about like how often it's like the first time your friends will come. Like that often you see that at Raw Comedy, like people have like a huge friendship group seeing their friend, and I always find it kind of funny because if their friend is good at comedy, it's kind of a going away party for their friend. Like you're never going to see that person again. Comedy is their life now.
Yeah,
that's it. They're done.
That's their personality.
That's their personality. They're going to drift away. They're going to be not coming to social engagements. They're drifting away. That's it. It's at the going away party.
Their calendar is booked with gigs like months in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first gig was pretty bad. I remember that feeling of like, fuck, I just suck.
And did you jump straight back into it?
Yeah, I think I had a gig like a week. I don't know, fairly soon after that, which went better. And then the third gig was at the same place, and it went good. That was like the first one. I was like, yeah, that was good.
Oh yeah, sweet. Because I find a lot of people, it's very common for people to try it out once and then like have a massive gap between doing it again. Yeah,
I've heard heaps of people, that's their story. Like they did it secretly once, and then a couple of years later, a year later, they go again. But no, I dove straight in once I started. I was like, this is my thing. I'm going to try and be good at this. Yeah. Which was, because I heard your podcast with Goxie. He was talking about there wasn't many gigs around back then, and there wasn't. Like, there was Sit Down was the big thing, and then I think because I started a bit later than him, there were more people putting on gigs in like pubs, like open mic sort of things. But I still couldn't do many gigs. Like maybe two a week was good.
2 a week was good.
That was good. Yeah. I don't know how many people in Brisbane can do now, but 2 and 2 a week. Yeah, that'd be like a good week.
Was that like at a beginner, like when you just start, like beginner level at 2 a week?
Yeah, I'm sure people who are higher up could do more, but for me, 2 a week was like as much as I could get, basically.
Yeah, cool. I think I'm at the moment, I think I'm at like 2 or 3 a week.
Okay.
But I'm also like sticking to just Brisbane. Yeah. Like where a lot of people are chasing gigs around Gold Coast and other areas like that. But because I don't drive, I kind of just stick to the Brisbane stuff.
Yeah, you can the further out you're willing to go, you can get more. But I think 2 or 3 a week is a good way to start and get. And there seems to be heaps more shows in Brisbane now. You got like Sit Down still doing stuff and Good Chat and other people. Yeah.
Yep. And then so from there, your first few gigs, like what was the progression there after doing a few gigs?
I think Raw. I like signed up for Raw. But I don't know. I can't really remember. The first few years, sort of it all collapses in on itself, you know? It's a while ago now. But I remember I don't know. I started doing my own things with Goxie pretty quickly into it. Like we'd run gigs, which were often bad. And no one would come. Like maybe 2 years in, I think every week we would do a gig at this brewery place. Like, what was it called? It's on Wellington Road. Do you know that place? Like, you can like bottle your own beer there. I guess you don't know Brisbane very well. I get I'm the worst at. It's like brew. I don't know. Anyway, they had like an upstairs room above the brewery where they sometimes have functions and stuff. And like we do a gig there every Thursday. And if one person came, that would be pretty good. Like it was seriously that bad. Like no one would ever come. But it was really helpful for me in terms of just practicing saying my jokes to anyone and like just repeating it. Yeah, it was really helpful. And I would put on little things like, you know, maybe they'd only go 3 times at this venue or 3 times at this venue. But that was the first time I could give myself like longer spots, like a 20-minute spot, rather than just having like a 5. And then I think that helped in the development of like my own personal style, because you can't, when you're doing 5s, like you don't have it isn't a lot of time. Like it's a lot of time, but it's also not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you kind of got to get them used to, like you got to introduce yourself, get them on board with you. And then your time's up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But if you got a longer set, you can like, you know, just play with different ideas or different ways of doing things.
And get comfortable with the crowd and stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I started, I was very arrogant, which is useful. It's good and bad, right? To be very full, like, because I think if you're not, why would you do it? Like you're gonna fail so much that you have to have like an insane level of self-belief to keep going in the face of like constant rejection.
Yeah, you have to back yourself because no one else is.
Yeah, no one, because you are bad.
Yeah,
you are objectively bad. So if you don't think it's good, then you would stop. You would recognize that this is a terrible experience and stop. But I think that kind of there was good things about that though, where I was maybe more experimental in the first couple of years, and then over time you sort of get beaten into like being a bit more like everyone else, just so that you can do clubs and stuff.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to find your voice? You feel like your voice in comedy and your style?
I think I was doing something. I don't know. It's hard to know looking back, because in some ways I think I got worse over time, like less like myself. So I think I was doing something different straight away. But maybe I wasn't doing it very well. But I was very like adamant on, no, it has to be like this, and it's got to be like the way I want to do it. Even if it wasn't working, I was adamant that it had to be like a certain kind of thing. And then over time, it's just like the reality of like it has to go well, or else you're not going to get to do it.
Yeah,
you have to change. You have to meet other people's expectations. So I think I had it pretty quickly, like my own thing. Whether that is good or not is debatable. You know what I mean? But yeah, I was like very gung-ho of like, this is what I want to do from the get-go. Yeah. But it was like a cool time in Brisbane comedy. There was so many good acts, like Sam Campbell was back then, Goxie, Becky Lucas, Greg Larson, Henry Stone, who used to do like those JDOS videos with, I don't know if you ever saw those.
No, I don't think so.
Sam Campbell and Greg Larson had this like trio with Henry called Skills in Time. And they would do like sketches like that were sort of like proto. I don't want to say proto viral. Like they were viral for the time, but I guess now the internet, what counts as viral is like there's so many more viral videos. You know what I mean? Like it was viral, but if you think the number, I think their biggest numbers were maybe they got 1 million or 500,000, but now there's so many people with.
And now it's also like the content's a lot shorter. Now like a lot of content's like 10, 20 seconds.
Absolutely, and these like 3 to 5 minute sketches. Yeah. So they were doing like cool stuff, and I remember Greg and Henry had like a room in the Valley called the Boom Boom Room. They put that on. I think that was like my 4th gig, and I was like, didn't go very well. Oh, not as good as my 3rd gig had. So that was like another thing of like, I want to get in with these guys, and it hasn't, worked out as well. I think it took like another year to get to do that room again.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that, anyway. But yeah, there was, and like, Jacob Lingard or like Corey White, Shane Hunter, like the Ting, the list goes like on and on of like people who are like professional stand-ups or did stand up at a high level or had TV shows at the time, even though we were all doing gigs to like no one in pubs where they're just like, I don't know, it felt like he was ambushing audiences that were just there for like a beer and a meal. And
that's how it feels at certain gigs. It's like, I remember I asked someone a few weeks ago, because afterwards I was like, did you know there was stand up on tonight? And they were like, no.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're just ambushing people. You're kind of ruining their night. It's awful.
It's either you're making it a very like, it's a pleasant surprise, or it's like, oh fuck, what did we get into?
But I do think that helped make people like good at stand-up.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you have to get their attention first.
Yeah, and you have to win them over because they're already against you in a way.
Yeah, they're already against you. So it's like you have to like do something immediately to make it at least engaging. And then you can like try and do your joke, like whatever, you know what I mean? So, but it's like got to get them. And I think sometimes if you just do good gigs all the time, you can get soft.
Yeah, you're not like challenging yourself, and you're getting comfortable with just doing the same kind of stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you just it's the easiest thing in the world is to accumulate fat on your jokes. You know what I mean? Words that you don't need, things that aren't actually that funny, but you're just a nice crowd just kind of laughs. So, yeah. I think that was the kind of the early years. And yeah, I did Raw. I think I got to the semi-final the first time I tried. Yep.
And was that 2012 as well, or was that more
2013,
yeah,
I think. Yeah, like the summer of 2013. And then I was like, maybe that's not for me. I didn't do it the next year. Just was like doing as many gigs as I could. And then 2015 I did Raw again, and that's when I won Raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you won the whole thing. And what was so obviously you would have been excited just to like the TV aspect of it and like making it to the finals as well.
Yeah, it was really exciting because Raw, I don't know, I think it's still, it's a big deal still?
Yeah, I think it's still a big deal.
I think it was a bigger deal maybe, just because it was on TV and TV was bigger back then.
Yeah.
TV is like less important now. Because I remember I used to watch Raw before I started comedy. Like I knew, I'd seen Sam Campbell do Raw, I'd seen Ting do Raw, like on the TV. So I was like, and Hannah Gadsby had made like had won Raw and became like important, and Tom Ballard had been on Raw.
Yeah, and Becky as well.
Becky, I'd started comedy when Becky did Raw. It was the same year Cameron Duggan, another great like comedian from Brisbane at the time. So these were all like people who was like, it's like it seemed like a way of making it in comedy is like doing Raw. So I think 2014 I did like a split bill in the Melbourne Comedy Festival with Matt Ford.
Yep.
And Damien Power came to watch it, which was really nice of him. And he told me like, man, you should do Raw next year. I think you could do really well.
Yeah.
And that gave me like the idea or the confidence of like, yeah, I should do this and like just focus on like a good 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So did that mean like that from then on you're kind of just tightening up the same 5, or?
I think no, because it still would have been months. Like, what comedy festivals like March, April, and then Raw would have been like the sort of summer.
Oh yeah.
But it gave me the idea of like, think of a set or get towards like a 5, because I was doing like a 20-30 minute thing which had like stories, and I think in that show I had like a children's tent that I used to make people fight me in. Like someone from the audience. It was this whole thing about tent boxing, like the Queensland tent boxing. I'd seen this documentary about it, and then some of my friends went, where they'll go to like different towns, Fred Brophy, and you can just like fight professional boxers in a tent.
Oh.
Like just people in the audience just fight boxers.
I've never heard of this. I need to look into this.
Yeah. It's like a crazy thing. I don't know if it still happens, but it used to be like all over the country, and then it ended up just with this one lost guy doing it in Queensland. And he's like a crazy guy, like, he's done heaps of interesting things and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I sort of came up with my own story about that, and then I would tent box people, but in like a tiny children's tent. So I was doing sort of, weird stuff like that. And then Damien was like, there's a good 5 in there if you just cut, maybe don't do all your sort of crazy stuff. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I had my own style early. Like, yeah, I at least had the balls to try stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so then you won Raw, and was that still like the Edinburgh Fringe? Was that the...
Yeah, they send you to Edinburgh, and that was really interesting, like, and a good experience. I didn't do great in Edinburgh, because, like... I guess that's maybe will be an ongoing theme, the tension between what you should do to be a successful comedian and what I think I should do. So, and Raw had a really tight 5, but there was a few Australian references as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know if I could, I was like, I don't know if that will work in the UK. So I went there and I cut a few, they made some of the stronger jokes from my Raw set. But then in my head I was like, but you've done Raw now, you should also show them what you're capable of. So at the time I had a very annoying bit that I'd worked on about the Brisbane floods, where I would pretend that people didn't know what a flood was, and I would just explain like it's like when there's too much glass in a glass of water and some of it spills out, but I would just explain it for ages. Like really go into it, and sometimes it would really kill, like it'd be very funny, but then sometimes obviously it didn't, and I did it there. I opened with it as well. Oh,
straight at the top.
Yeah, and you get 7 minutes in Edinburgh. So I think that went for like 3 or 4 minutes, and just bombed, absolutely bombed. And then I got them back with like I did fine for the rest of my set, but that bit just like nothing. Yeah, and then afterwards the judges were like, "Yeah, you can't start like that. That's just not gonna."
So with
but I didn't abandon that bit. I did in my first solo show. Oh, yeah. I had like animations and so that's I don't know. I don't know, is it cool or is it just like annoying? Am I just like a fucking prick?
So with Edinburgh, do they like kind of put you into another competition?
Yeah, you get put into the semi-final of this thing called So You Think You're Funny. You don't even get the final. You got to try and get to the final.
Oh, you still have to fight your way again.
Yeah, you're back down in the middle, I guess. So you're in another competition, and it's like acts from all over the UK, and I think there's some other international people in it as well. And the UK has like heaps of those. I think like sort of Raw equivalents, and this is just one of the big ones. Yeah, and then I got a few other gigs like around Edinburgh, and it was cool to just see what that festival's like, and like just also what comedy's like overseas. Yeah, yeah, that was. Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever thought about going or gone to the Edinburgh Comedy Festival?
No, I actually don't know too much about it. Hey, I know it's the comedy festival, but yeah, I don't.
It was like it was a bit of not a shock. I don't know, because I'd like researched about it and I'd heard podcasts like, this is what it's like. But when you go to Melbourne's such a big city. The comedy festival's like a big deal, but the city's just doing its own thing. Like it's just one thing on in the city. But when you go to Edinburgh, it's a much smaller city. It's in like the summer, and so like heaps of people from Edinburgh just leave. And like just rent out their houses, and like it feels like the whole city is just Edinburgh comedy, like the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. That's the only thing that's happening, basically.
Wow. So it's
like people it's just like there's so many people on the streets. People like on the weekends you'll see buses just pulling in from all over the UK. People are just for like a weekend. They're just coming for the weekend. Like it's just packed. It's just this is what's happening, compared to like Melbourne, where it's like it's a good festival, but it's just one of many things you could be doing in the city. Yeah. People are just living their life.
Yeah. And you kind of might notice, that comedian, I like their poster or whatever. I might go see that.
Yeah.
But like, So then I guess people like their whole schedule is just hitting all these different comedy shows.
Yeah, and there's like the free fringe there, so you can just walk around and just walk into a show. If you just it's on, so I'll just have people just walk into something to sit down, and then you just pay them at the end, like just put money in a bucket at the end, and then maybe they'll have like a few shows at night that they've like bought tickets for, but they'll just be walking around just seeing whatever during the day. Yeah, it's like crazy. It's like a world where comedy has just taken over a city.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that'd be great to just experience in itself.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah,
especially as you said, like comedy can kind of become your life. You're like, oh my god, this is like,
thing. You could see. I don't know. I mean, if you were just like diligent, you could easily. There's shows on from like the morning until 2 a.m. or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like daytime show. You can just see comedy. You could see 8 shows a day.
Fuck.
Yeah.
It's a lot of shows.
Yeah. It was just from a blur. Yeah. But that was cool. Yeah.
Was there anyone from that comp so you've seen, like, is it the same thing with Raw, like from that Edinburgh comp that you've seen like people blow up since then that you like competed with or anything?
Yeah, there's one guy I'm still in contact with, and he's blowing up at the moment. Ed Day. You might have seen him on Instagram with some other guys. He does his sketches that are going really well. I think he's doing great. But yeah, I sort of noticed more from Raw the year I did. Like Sam Taunton's hosting the project now. I think Rohan Ganju.
Yeah, I've met him before actually.
Yeah, we were became friends through Raw, and he's like a great comedian that I really admire. Yeah, so. Through Raw, I've seen a lot of people go on to be successful and stuff.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, from my year or whatever. Yeah.
With Edinburgh, do you think is it like Melbourne Comedy Festival where anyone can apply to be a part of it, or is it a bit more curated?
No, it's even crazier than Melbourne Comedy Festival because Melbourne Comedy Festival, they've got festival managed venues, and then you can just apply, find your own venue, but it's all through one sort of thing. Not that I know everything about the Edinburgh, but it's there's these 4 sort of big venues that are this old school, and then there's 2 different competing free fringes that you can go through, just find your own venue, and then there's new big venues like Monkey Barrel that are there's just heaps of, it's crazy, it's more of a free for all. No one person seems to really control Edinburgh Fringe the way that Melbourne is more centralized,
So with other free fringes, is that just other people just being we're going to do our own festival too at the exact same time? Or is it under the same umbrella?
I think it's under the same umbrella still, but the big venues, I mean, you'd be going to stuff I don't really know all the ins and outs of, but I think what happened was the big venues just would charge a lot of money for venue hire, to do their rooms. And maybe people were accumulating a lot of debt, and a lot of comedians maybe over there thought that's not a sustainable model. We're just going to have free show, you don't. I think the venue might even be free venue hire. You don't pay anything, and then you also the audience doesn't pay anything. They just give money at the end.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
so that's cool.
If you have no money, you cannot. I mean, you should pay if you like. People just put money in a bucket, and I think now a lot of them have those card readers.
Yeah,
so you can card read as well. Yeah, so there's just heaps of. I remember the year I went. Maybe the guy that won best show was in a free fringe venue. Yeah, so people were doing great, exciting stuff from the free fringe. You don't have to be.
Yeah, and I guess it means it also takes away the stigma of just because it's free doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
someone that did a free show still was eligible.
Yeah, yeah. People really good comedians are doing free shows. Yeah, so yeah, it just seems way more everywhere than Melbourne Comedy Festival is.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Cool. So have you done Edinburgh Fringe since?
No, I went back once in 2019. I just did some spots and looked around, and that was again fun. And in 2018, I did because I won Best Newcomer at the Melbourne Comedy Festival in 2017. So the prize for that is you get to do your show at Soho Theatre in London, and then they organise a one-off show in Edinburgh. At the Stand? It was Gilded Balloon, which is one of the big venues there. So we just it was me and Aaron Chen. We won jointly, and then we did our 12, 13 nights in London, and then we got the train up to Edinburgh and did one show there, which was really fun.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And how did that? Were you still? How did that go? Like, so did you won for like a solo show?
Yeah, for a solo show in 2017. Yeah.
We still. Sorry?
I guess, yeah, we both won.
Yeah.
Me
okay,
and
cool.
Aaron Chen. He had his own show. And he had a sidekick as well. Yeah.
And were you still fighting people in tents and?
I had a bit that year where I had all these sort of like dark bits, and then I would claim that I was against violence and I wanted to prove it. Mm-hmm. So I'd get someone from the crowd to come up and punch me in the stomach. And I would say, this is how Houdini died, so just don't go too hard. And then I'd get them to increasingly punch like harder and harder until I couldn't take it anymore. And then I'd go like, I didn't like that. See, I'm against violence. And yeah, so that I was doing still crazy stuff in the shows. And anyway, I felt like I told the Soho Theatre about that. Mm-hmm. And anyway, the first night I did it, like they freaked out. They were like, you can't do that. Like, that's like a liability issue or whatever. We had to have like a meeting to see like if I could keep going. And they ended up buying boxing gloves so that the crowd would like have gloves to wear and they would like cushion the blow a bit.
That's funny that that's their compromise.
That was their compromise.
They're like, okay, you can still do it with boxing gloves.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a bit of a trick to it as well. Like, I'd done a little bit of boxing, not whatever. So I knew, if you step back, you can sort of like, take some of the impact off the punch. And like, if your abs are tensed, I was like, in good shape at the time. Mm-hmm. If you have strong abs, you're tensed, you'll know when the punch is going to... What hurts you is when you don't see the punch coming.
Yeah.
So like it is kind of a trick, like I knew how to do this trick. It wasn't super dangerous. There was only a couple of times where people really hurt me. There was a few where I was like, fuck, that hurt. Like,
was that like really... on the first hit, or it took a while?
I think someone sent me a video, like it was during Melbourne, their friend, it was a big guy, and that's the thing about this trick as well, is a lot of people can't punch. Also, they're reluctant to hurt you. They don't want to hurt you.
Was it whoever wanted to volunteer? Were you trying to pick people, or?
I would pick people, yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it would be funny. It's also funny if I do get hurt. I always thought.
Yeah.
Like, it's funnier if it really does hurt. Because I would be like, I would get antagonistic and I'd be like, I don't want to call you a pussy, but like that didn't hurt. But eventually I would just pretend that it did. Mm-hmm. Like, because, I don't know, people are reluctant to hurt you. They're just nice. It's like a crazy thing you're asking people to do.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I think people just never... We live in a nice society. A lot of people have never punched anyone. They don't know how to transfer their weight into it. But anyway, this time, this guy, the first one, he whipped in this like uppercut. He was a big guy, much bigger than me, and it like fucking hurt. And I was like, I got to take at least one more to make the bit funny.
I love how you get punched and you're still like, I got to...
Yeah, it hurt. It took the wind out of me, and I was like, I got to fucking take this again. And then he whipped it even in hard, because I said harder.
You didn't even say again. You were just like, no, harder.
Yeah, harder.
And you probably called him a pussy.
Yeah. And it properly hurt. And there's like, his friend was videoing it and they sent it to me later. And there's like, I just like, it's almost exactly like you see boxers in fights when I just nodded and I just went like that, like no more, like just nod. That's good. Goxie told me once a couple of years ago that he did this person's 40th birthday party in like Victoria, rural Victoria somewhere. And they were like, oh yeah, we love comedy. Like we went to the comedy festival. A couple of years ago we went to this show and this like young guy, he made my husband punch him. And he was like, oh, that's my mate. And I thought that's kind of nice. Like, I don't know, that you've done something that people remember years later.
Yeah.
They might not remember you, but you did something different and it's like memorable. So yeah. But anyway, that was kind of a crazy... Yeah, so that's their compromise was the audience had to wear gloves in London for the show.
And were you then asking for more hits or...
Yeah, I'd ask for more hits and I'd rile them up and I would try and drag it out. I'd try and make the tension really build. So then when you do the stupid reveal of, I didn't like that, it's sort of funnier. And at the time I also had this bit about cane toads, how the ethical way to kill them is like putting them in a freezer and they hop around until they can't hop anymore. And I would like hit my head against the mic over and over again. And like, I've got very pale skin, which bruises easily. But during Melbourne, I was doing it so much and really smashing my head. Like it started to bleed and like it didn't stop bleeding.
Yeah.
Like, not stop bleeding, but it was like, after a while, it was kind of like scabbing up and I would open it up again. I was like kind of just bleeding from the head every night. Like, I don't know. I had this crazy show.
Sean Smith also does that. too. She has a bit where she just hits her head with the mic, being like, I'm a silly goose, and she like makes herself bleed sometimes.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I'm influencing people. But yeah,
rock and roll.
2017, and I don't know. I liked because Stuart Lee would have bits like that where he would like use sound, because I was a big Stuart Lee fan. Like he would use the sound of the mic engaging with like the act out. Yeah. So I felt like that bit. It's like I'm using it's like I'm the cane to anyway. So I must have looked like a freaking lunatic. Like I'm asking people to punch me. I'm like bleeding from the head. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not as good anymore.
You don't suffer for your art anymore.
I don't suffer anymore. Yeah, I've gone soft.
So you live in... Whenabouts did you move to... So you live in Melbourne now, right?
Yeah, I moved in 2015, just after I won Raw. Mm-hmm. I moved like a couple of months later. Yeah, June or July 2015. Yeah, I was like, I just thought there was a good opportunity to do more gigs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I moved down there. And I think that was cool. That was like, I mean, maybe you can always romanticize things as well, because like whenever you're doing things for the first time, it's more exciting. But I felt like that was a very exciting time for Melbourne comedy too. The first couple of years I was there, like in the same way Brisbane had been full of great acts, I felt like I moved to Melbourne, and then, you know, I came across, I think at a similar time, Danielle Walker had just moved. Mm-hmm. And she was like fucking destroying every gig. So exciting. Seeing like Ann Edmonds was like crushing at like every gig. I think Ronnie Chang had maybe just left, but like there was heaps of all those like people that were, you know, blowing up, like Nick Cody and and even people like Nick Capper had moved there not long ago, and he was like, you know, there was this gig called Crab Lab that still do it like once a month, but it was just like the funnest gig. Like it was in this pub in Chinatown, like 300 people would come, standing room. And like everyone, you know, all the comics would go to hang out at it as well. Mm-hmm. So you just see like people doing their best set for whatever, and like it just, I don't know, it was a really exciting time. Yeah, I loved going to that gig and just watching people. Yeah.
So when you started, you said you were getting 2 or 3. By the time you were like towards the end of like moving to Melbourne, like what were you averaging with gigs?
I think I was doing about 4 or 5 before I moved, just in like the lead up after Raw. I would get more sit down spots. Mm-hmm. That's basically what changed. I just got more sit down spots, which was great. Mm-hmm. But it still wasn't like an overwhelming number of gigs. But 4 or 5 is great. I probably do about the same amount now, 4 or 5. I could do more. You can do as many gigs as you want in Melbourne. Yeah. They're not all good, but you can do like a lot of gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you moved to Melbourne, were you like, fuck, were you trying to like, were you doubling what you were doing? Like, were you trying to like hit maximum?
I was trying to just gig as much as possible, like every night if I could. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And maybe I did the thing of, you never know, and maybe it doesn't matter. Like it's been so long, but I always remember like, did I fuck that up? Did I do this? Like, I would always be like, sometimes you see people who don't develop material very quickly, like they always do their best, and that's great as well because you're killing. And I'll be like, well, I went down, I did my best stuff, and then I was like, all right, everyone's seen that now. New material at every, you know what I mean? Yep. I was like, got to do new. Sometimes that goes good, like sometimes, But I do think it's important to like do new stuff. I think the best advice I got when I started comedy was like Sam Campbell was just like, have fun and just bomb lots.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that's good advice because you've got to bomb to get better. You got to take risks to get better.
And it's like that becoming soft thing. If you're bombing, like you're only going to just be like, okay, what can I do next?
How can I stop bombing?
Yeah. Oh, this is the worst. How can this not feel so?
Exactly. Yeah. You want to stop. You never want to bomb. It feels fucking horrendous. But if you never do bomb, it's because you're not taking risks after a while. Yeah.
I think I'm in a weird spot where I am worried about like other comics and room runners and stuff. So I kind of have, last year I've been running like pretty much the same set. I've tweaked and stuff over time, but like I'm in a weird spot where I get scared to do new stuff.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. I think that fear is totally normal. And you always want to, you're worried about what your peers think or what the audience thinks, and that if you don't do well this gig, I'll never get another gig. You know, I'm not going to get booked anymore. But I think that's something you just got to let go of. You've got to bomb sometimes. But bombing because you're trying to get better.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Or else it's I mean, you can always like smuggle little jokes. Probably the smart way is like smuggle jokes in.
Yeah, like so putting it in like how do you test out new material? Do you go up with a whole new 5, or do you just like put stuff in the middle or mix it in?
I normally
somewhere?
like will do at least one joke at the top, like an opener, and then just try new stuff. Yeah, it depends on the gig too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. But I do think, man, yeah, you gotta bomb. Look at Damien Power. He does whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
That's why he's one of the best. He's always just trying new stuff. And I know he has the position of being like this really established great comedian, so like he's got the runs on the board. But he takes advantage of that by experimenting still. 20 years in, still taking risks, still trying to get better, still trying things different ways. Because sometimes I think with bits, I don't know if you feel like this, it's like, I feel like most things that people do that don't work, it's not because it's not funny. Like mostly if you thought of an idea, it's probably funny.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is maybe it wasn't clear enough. Like you haven't explained it well enough to the audience, like your thought process, because you know why it's funny in your head. So you've like skipped too many steps in the process. So it's like, you just got to be clearer. Or sometimes it's like, you just got to say it slightly differently. Like say it with a different form of emotion, slower or faster or angrier or calmer or like vulnerable or not, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just that is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And
not the bit itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even like more confidence as well. Like something, I think I'm in a weird spot where I'm like, my writing, I'm less confident about my writing, but people are saying the writing is good. It's just the way you're delivering it. And I'm like, fuck. And it's kind of like a weird, like a loophole I'm stuck in, because it's like not confident in the writing, but if I was confident in the writing, the delivery would be better.
Absolutely. Like so much of comedy is a confidence trick, right? Like confidence is so winning, so magic that when you know a bit will work, you say it like it will work. So it does work. But when it's new, you say it like you're not sure it will work, so it doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's and people can see that you don't believe in it, so why are they going to believe it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then you do it once, it doesn't work, and you're like, no, never doing that again.
How many times do you think you need to try out a new bit before, like, you start to change the way the bit is or scrap it?
I think you can kind of... it depends on why the bit didn't work.
Yeah.
If you feel like it didn't work because, like, it's unclear what you're saying, then you need to rewrite it.
Yeah.
Or if it didn't work because maybe it's offensive or too edgy or whatever, that maybe won't improve. You know what I mean? But maybe if it's because you just didn't say it right, you didn't get the wording right, or you didn't say it confidently enough or with the right emotion, I think you got to give things at least 3 goes.
Yeah.
Don't you? I think more, really. Like, I reckon the more you do bits, the more you find things in them. But I think at minimum 3.
Yeah, cool.
Unless you just go up there and it's just like, what was I thinking? You know what I mean? Sometimes you do that. You're like, you say it to me and you're like, that's not funny. I was a moron.
So, do you rehearse a lot? Like, do you have a thing around rehearsal? Because I know some people like don't rehearse much.
I used to, especially for when I did that Raw. I really rehearsed it. I really like even those gigs I was doing with Goxie to like 1 or 2 people were basically rehearsals, and I would just say that set over and over in the lead up to like the state final and the final. I would repeat the set over and over again, so I felt so confident in it. But I don't know. I think maybe over time, maybe it's laziness. I don't rehearse as much anymore, and maybe I don't even... I write some things are really written out, and some things I want to try looser on stage to feel like... Because sometimes you can overwrite a bit, and it's less conversational. It doesn't have the rhythm of speech. It becomes like the rhythm of writing.
Yeah, because I guess the way you write is different to the way you speak.
Yeah.
So,
and then sometimes you can stumble onto things, like the pressure of the stage it can be enticing to do that too much of like, I'll just have this idea for a bit and I'll just say it on stage. And then I'll use the pressure of wanting to get a laugh, and that will like galvanize the funny thing to come out of me. And sometimes it does happen.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just bomb.
But if it works, you're like, I guess that's staying in.
Yeah. I know there's a few lines that have come out where I'm happy with over like the years. Where I'm like, fuck, I would never have thought of that if it wasn't for that creeping dread of like a bomb is setting in. But then there's so many other times where it's like you forget the failures. I forget the failures more easily than the successes. I'm very good at blocking out. How do you feel about that? Because often on these podcasts, people are like, what's your worst bomb? Like, what was the worst gig you ever done? Do you remember them?
Yeah, I do. But I kind of like, because when I first had I think it was a similar thing to your story. On my third gig, I froze up, and that ruined my weekend. And I was like, oh, I fucked up and blah blah blah. And now I look back, and it was nothing. Yeah. So I still remember them, but I kind of changed my. At the time, it ruined, like it was the worst. But now it's just like a funny story.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me and things like that. And then one time I had a bomb where it was like at a matinee, and it was like so bad, and I got off stage laughing about it. So that's when I was like, oh, my mindset's kind of changed. Like, I'm not taking it as personally anymore.
Yeah, I feel like I forget a lot of... you remember some ones and like some funny ones.
Yeah.
But I just immediately like try and learn the lesson from it, but then just destroy that memory.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Because if you dwell on it too much, it's just too painful, and it stops you from doing what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you really get into the mind of the people, like, not liking it, how can you keep going? Yeah.
Well, if you go up and you're like, oh, this is the bit that people
This is the bit that they didn't like, yeah.
Then that's going to happen. Because,
it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, yeah. So, I don't know, I think just try and... I think you've just got to be... you got to have a little bit of like you got to be self-aware, but not too self-aware. Because if you're...
Yeah, I feel like some people... Like, it's like there is like a lack of self-awareness to comedy. Like, because, it's like that similar thing. It's like if you don't have that arrogance at the beginning, like, you're not going to...
You won't be able to do it. Yeah, and if you're too self-aware of like all the little things that went wrong all the time, you'll just be like, oh, I suck. This is horrible. Like, there's that bit of all of us, I think, as like a social animal that, we want to be, accepted by the tribe. And maybe this is like bullshit, like Evo psychology, but I do think like that's why people are so scared of public speaking. Like, because if you fail at public speaking in front of the group, then that could, like back in the day when we're all hunting, they're like, well, no food for you. You suck. That's where that fear comes from. And I think if you dwell too much on like that part of yourself that is aware of what other people think of you, it just becomes too hard, too bad. So you just got to be like, just drop it. Move on into the next moment. But if you're not self-aware enough, you think you always kill when you bomb, you just never get good.
Yeah. How many shows have you done, like solo shows have you done?
I've done 4 at the Melbourne Comedy Festival, and I've done one year I did, which I don't count as a solo show, but I did like a sort of play thing, just one night. So that'd be 5.
A play thing? What was that?
Like sort of a story where I had different actors reading out their parts, and then I had like a video that went with it.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was sort of it's called The Wave. It was about what if Seinfeld was Jeffrey Epstein.
Do you have a recording or anything of that?
Yeah, I can send you this, like the story. Yeah,
yeah,
if you'd like to look.
That sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. Yeah. I'd love to put it on properly. Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, it's funny because you mentioned Goxie. He said his first like festival show was a split you guys did together. Yeah, we did a split in 2015 at Spleen Bar. It was great. That's the only thing I can talk about is Goxie. I could do podcasts about him, like a historian of his comedy career. But anyway, we were friends and we did the split bill. He would go on first, and at the time he was doing like a lot of Hungry Jack stuff, and every night he would buy Hungry Jacks for the show, and he would eat a Whopper on stage, and then he would like share chips with the audience. And one night he was like running late, and I called him like, man, where are you for the show? And he's like, I'm in Hungry Jacks, the line's long. Not like I'm not coming, like I'll just leave the line. He's like, no, I need like I have to get the Hungry Jacks, like I have to. He's so funny, man. Like we both wore the gold jackets because he had this bit where he would go like, it started at that Boom Boom Room Henry Stone put on. I think that was the change in Goxie, in my opinion, anyway. Before he was like more one-liner style, and then they asked him to MC Boom Boom Room on the final show. It was like packed out. It was an awesome night. And they got Goxie to roller skate onto stage wearing this gold jacket. And they said he claimed that he'd won it for being like the 1997 Cheese TV rollerblading champion. And he just did this whole thing. Anyway, so the gold jacket kind of became his thing. And then I guess like by extension my thing. And he would wear a gold jacket on stage. Often he'd have no shirt on underneath, just a gold jacket. And then he'd go, you know, I've got this jacket. It's not really me. It's showbiz, not really me. I want to be like my true self. And then he would take it off and underneath it had just like a gold vest. It was like a great gag. But yeah, that was really fun. And like we'd get like a few people in. And then when I won Raw, we were still doing that show. So the last couple like sold out off the back of Raw. So it was awesome to be able to like do that show together. I remember we got like a kind of this mixed review at the time from just, I don't know, it was some website, it doesn't matter. And they thought I was all right, but they didn't like Goxie. Just thought like they just couldn't understand what he was doing. I think a lot of people had that back then. Some people would love it, some people just couldn't. And anyway, about a year later, he blows up online, and she sent a tweet out or sent him a message being like, I was wrong, that review was wrong, he's a really funny guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that was really good of her, though.
Yeah, it's really nice to be like...
I just didn't get it, and you actually are really talented.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's actually... Yeah, that's not a common thing for
a reviewer to be...
Yeah. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So I was really stoked when he blew up, because for years I just thought this is like the funniest guy in the world. When I won Raw, I said it on stage. I was like, shout out to Goxie, funniest comedian in Australia.
That's cool. Yeah, because Goxie's someone I've been following since the online stuff, like back like 2016, like when those like webcam videos blew up, and it's funny because he was someone that my mates and I would like send each other like his clips and like his like different like photos and stuff. So to meet him through the scene was like, holy shit, like
yeah, he really persisted with online. You know what I mean? Like he started off with different series like Feed Me Anything, where he would like have people, maybe there's only 50 people sort of following him back then, and he would request like, tell me what I'll eat and I'll go eat it, and then get a photo with it, and then he would have like a photo, and then it would just be like a paragraph of him sort of describing the food, but mostly about how awkward he felt asking like the person who worked there to get a photo of him with it, and how what lie he would come up with because he was too embarrassed to say it was like a comedy thing.
Yeah.
And it would just be these like really hilarious like sort of reviews of like whatever dish. Sometimes people would go to people's house and have like a meal with them and stuff. So he had all these like series, and he just kept engaging with people, and that led to like the reviewing Fisherman's Baskets and like reviewing Jimmy Barnes ice cream, and you could just see like, oh, these videos got like 15,000 views now, and that's like 30,000, and now then it's like, whoa, like Stitch Up happened, like millions of people are watching it, you know. And off the back of that, he just like, yeah, is Goxie now.
Yeah, the reviewing food thing has become is a very consistent thing. Like I opened for him the other week, and he rocks up with just like a box of like Subway flavored chips and like airplane jelly flavored milk and stuff to review on stage.
He's able to just wring like so much comedy out of the mundane. And I think as well, it's easy now in like 2013 or wherever we are, just like that's a whole genre of people like reviewing food in their car or reviewing sort of like, you know, fast food. But back in 2016, no one was doing that. Like that didn't exist. He's like the first. He almost invented a genre. I don't know if he like everyone else copied him, but he was doing it before everyone else. Like it's pretty amazing. I didn't, you know, just doing these like lo-fi videos. Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, that's cool. And it also, it's funny how like small, like you kind of start to see how small the comedy scene is. Like while doing this podcast, like talking to, just seeing how all these like comedians kind of connect when they're just talking about the scene. Well, oh, I had that person on like 2 episodes ago. So when Goxie mentioned that you guys did a split, I was like, oh, I was already looking at having you on here. So it's kind of cool that they connect in that way.
Yeah, I think especially before I left Brisbane, I felt like we were like a sort of a duo where we would be going around to do different stuff together, or we did a trip to Melbourne and Sydney together, and we did the comedy festival together and stuff, and we did Sydney Fringe together. Like we did a lot of, I think maybe wrongly or rightly, I think we both felt sort of like outsiders in the comedy scene at the time, and just like we both had very strong ideas about what we wanted and what we wanted to do, and yeah, sort of like just fell in as like this little even though we're kind of different, fairly different people, or do different kinds of comedy, but
you're still sticking to something that's outside of the mainstream idea of stand-up is as well.
And I mean, maybe that was stupid as hell because like I said, everyone who else was doing comedy actually was really good. But yeah, it worked for us, I guess. Yeah. We're talking about doing a tour in the Northern Territory in August.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
That'll be sick. I mean, it'll be his tour. I'll just be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess we can say we're doing a tour together. Yeah.
Any other areas or just Northern Territory for now?
I think just Northern Territory for this one. Yeah. It'll be Alice Springs and Darwin. I think just those two. Yeah. But we'll see. Like, we're just talking about it at the moment, trying to organize venues and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Which is cool. Yeah. I remember when he first blew up, I supported him in Adelaide, and it was like one of the craziest shows that I've ever done. There was like 100+ people, completely packed. Like, you know, it's going to be a great show when you, as the opener, do well, because you know they're just like that hot.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, so I went, like, I had a great set, and then he goes on and just like,
yeah,
like destroys the place.
Yeah.
And it was like amazing seeing that validation for him, you know.
That's how it felt, even just opening for him the other week, because I was like, these guys don't know who I am. Like, it's kind of weird opening for someone where everyone's there for that person. That was the first time I've done that, so that was really cool. And the crowd was really good, but then it was that same thing of like once he went on, it was just like
absolutely. You're not. It's a sort of like when you're at the pub and they're like, well, I just wanted to talk to my friend.
Yeah,
you're not what they're expecting, and when you go to open for someone, they're not expecting you. They're like, just get to the guy we want to see.
Yeah.
So if you do well, it's like, well, they're a great crowd, because still, like, how good is it going to be when the main guy gets on? Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun thing to do, but like you're totally right. You are definitely a sort of unwanted side act.
Yeah, I could just like, it was like a weird thing in my head. I was like looking at faces like they didn't expect to see me.
No, but it's still fun. Yeah. It's like when you go to see a big band, like there'll be smaller bands on before or whatever. I think people sort of understand what like openers and
and that's how you discover
the new person. Yeah. I know. Yeah, exactly.
That's actually that's how I found Damien Power. Because I saw a show I went and saw Aaron Chen within the first week or so moving to Brisbane. So I wasn't familiar with Damien Power, but that's how I found him.
Opening for
Aaron Chen. And then I realised that he was like kind of the guy in the Brisbane scene. But
yeah. Well, like there's heaps of... I know I went to a Dan Rath show once. Do you know Dan Rath?
Yeah, I saw him his festival show here a few weeks back.
He was a Brisbane person as well, same time. I remember he did a split bill one year with Becky Lucas, Corey White, and Dan Rath, which like, what a lineup these days. But anyway, I went to his show, and then he was asking the crowd, "Oh, where'd you find out about this?" And they're like, "Oh, when you opened for Aaron Chen." Like that's how So it's a cool way to find new people, and it's good for big acts to do that. I think it's nice of them, especially for like like I know Aaron and Dan are mates, but like Dan's also like a fucking amazing act, so funny.
Yeah, he's great. So you mentioned you're just planning discussing a tour with Goxie. Is there anything else lined up for you?
I got to do jury duty, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in July. So hopefully I can get that done before the tour. I don't want to be on like a big murder trial or anything. Just more touring around, like just trying to organize more shows. The sort of level I'm at, it's always just like a comedian, not Angus Gordon. But that's good. It's good to just try and get better doing clubs. Yeah. But I don't nothing major on the horizon.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. And where can people find you?
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Real Angus Gordon on Instagram, Angus Gordon 9 on Twitter. I'm trying to post more on that. Man, you got to get on the internet, hey. I've been very reluctant.
I love you're killing it with the Instagram posts. You probably do it on Twitter too, like the text
little
posts,
stories.
little stories and stuff.
Oh,
great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm trying to do that like every day or as many days as I can. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I write them. I'm like, the ones I put up, I stand by.
Yeah.
But I write some. I'm like, nah.
The ones you put, Is there anything you've written that you've turned into a bit from those doing the daily posts and stuff?
A couple, yeah. The ones that feel just like little gags I've done. But that's something I'd love to get back to is... Because you saw my show the other night.
Yes, yeah.
And it's very story-based. But the stories have a lot of jokes in them. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I'd love to be able to do that more conversationally. You know, less sort of with the reading kind of thing. And maybe that's something this year I'd love to work on is like pushing my style further that way. Yeah.
I think the reading thing added a whole thing to it as well, how you'd just be grabbing a different book.
Yeah. Oh, to explain the show.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's another thing. I filmed that night, so I'm going to edit that, put that out this year, hopefully.
Yeah, awesome.
So people, if they listen to this, maybe later in the year, they'll see it on the internet, on YouTube or whatever. I do this show where I claim that I need to ever get a JB Hi-Fi podcasting mic because I don't trust. I've been lying too much in my stand-up and it's distorted my worldview. And I go back and forth between different stories throughout the show that I've written down to prove that they're true. And I think you do. It's an interesting thing with the book of like because I kind of know all the work. Like I sort of memorized it.
Yeah.
But it does create like a tension where you can go back and talk to the audience, then back into the story. Where I don't know, that's kind of become part of my style over the last couple of years. But I'd like to experiment to see if I could do it without that.
Yeah,
yeah. If that would change the tone or not, I don't know.
I think there's switching books also adds like a comedic value to it too. Being like, all right, and then quickly going to the next one.
Yeah.
Like but yeah, and then also at the end of the show you give out like
an essay. Yeah. I did that in my first show as well. Like, and this year I decided to bring that back of getting my girlfriend's an art historian. She's really talented and a great writer. I just think it's so fun. And in art, if when you go to like an art opening, they'll have like a catalog essay that like kind of explains the work, gives it a bit of, maybe like a theoretical or the lineage of like what they're doing, sort of explains what's going on. I think it's so funny to do that for comedy, to claim that you're like an artist that needs this kind of like level of theoretical engagement. I don't know. I love doing stuff. I think that's one of the funniest things you can do is just take yourself way too seriously. So yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, if you want any essays, hit me up and I can send them to you. I've got plenty of PDFs.
Yeah, give us all the PDFs.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Man, thanks. I feel like I talk too much. I feel like it's so weird to have a chat when I wasn't asking you questions. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean though? If you talk to someone normally, and then I've talked this much, I'd have to walk home being like, "Fucking hell, I'm a fucking rude prick." But I know this is what a show is. It's an interview. Yeah. But I'm still in like that sort of reptile part of my brain is like, bro, you fucked that conversation up.
You took it over completely.
Yeah, you were so rude.
You doxed me also.
Yeah, I did dox you. No.